At one point in time, the H.W. Gossard factory, known for making women's underclothes, was the second largest employer in Ishpeming. Most of those employees were women. For details on the history of the building, the business, and some stories from one former employee, here's Rebecca Bartlemay.
On Cleveland Avenue in Ishpeming, you'll find the historic Gossard building. Before it was that, it was a department store built in the 1900s.
Fred Brasted had many buildings in Ishpeming that date back into the 1800s. It took him 2 years to build this, 3 floors, full basement, 12,000 square feet per floor. It was the largest department store north of Milwaukee at the time.
After Brasted died, H.W. Gossard Company purchased the building in 1920, which manufactured women's undergarments such as brassieres, girdles, and corsets.
Eventually, to all 3 floors working on brassieres and corsets. The basement was used for maintenance. And then in 1948, the Gossard added the 4th floor, which they used as their cutting. Most of the men worked up there. They were the only ones that did the actual cutting around the patterns.
In 1929, the Gossard was the second largest employer in Ishpeming. The majority of the employees were women.
It might be even 85%. They did have carpenters, the maintenance guys, the janitors, the elevator worker.
The women would stick to a schedule for most of the day.
They would get their form that they would put their piecework information on, so that's how they knew how they would get paid. They took a break around 10 o'clock and they shut down the power to the machines, and the women would have to oil their machines. They would get like a 15-minute break. Then they would get an hour for lunch, and some of the women would leave and go to a restaurant, or they just go for a walk, and then they would resume and then work until the day was over.
The piecework was how much employees were paid.
A certain rate every day. If you didn't, they'd pay you for it, but they'd remind you. They'd come and talk to your supervisor about making your rate.
Elaine Peterson worked at the Gossard for a total of 22 years. She never operated the sewing machines, but did many other jobs throughout the factory. In 1948, some of the women working there worked with Ruth Crane and Geraldine DeFont to create a union. Elaine was one of those interested in joining the union.
It had to be so secretive. You wouldn't even tell your best friend you belonged to the union.
The reason for forming the union was because of wages, and after months of trying to negotiate, the Great Strike of '49 was created on April 12th.
We had to be down at the Gossard at 6 o'clock in the morning. We were walking the front and the side of the place. And then across the street was the ones that worked for the union. They'd be hollering back and forth and saying some unpleasant words. You got a card, and there was a captain on every shift that we shifted it out. You had 2-hour walking shifts, you know, to do it. And then you'd get that card punched. And every week you'd get $10 if you weren't ahead of the household, and $15 if you were.
As the people on strike would march, they also chanted and sang songs.
We shall not be moved, we shall not be moved like a tree standing by the river. We shall not be moved.
Elaine says that everyone in the union worked together to make sure that everyone was taken care of.
They put up like a cafeteria for us. We had 3 meals a day, and you could bring your families. You also could get a voucher where you could go to the store and get food. We paid some electric light bills. We paid some heating bills. So we helped out.
Elaine was one of a handful of women who were arrested during the strike.
So we forgot about the back door. We never thought of it. So here was the manager, had his car there, and he was filling it up with those bundles to take to Gwyn. And then we heard about it and got the word, and we all went back there to prevent his car from coming out of the alley with those things. And he took down our names, and we got arrested for over-picketing.
On August 4th, negotiations were made and the strike was over. Charges against the ones that were arrested were dropped. 27 years after that, the plant closed down. Part of that was because of the women's movement. Less women were purchasing corsets and brasiers, and another part of it was because other department stores were selling lingerie for cheaper prices. In 1985, Sandy and her husband purchased the building. Sandy is making it her mission to preserve the history of the Gossard.
When folks come in to visit Ishpeming, they will come into the Gossards because their grandmothers worked here, their great-grandmothers worked here, great-aunts. I want to preserve the building because it's well-structured. It's got the original hardwood floors in it. It's gone from Brasted, who I think was a genius when he built this building, to the history of all the women that worked here.
Reporting for Local 3 News, I'm Rebecca Bartlemay.
Thank you for joining us for this special report featuring stories of women in history that celebrate the contributions women have made here in the Upper Peninsula and help honor National Women's Month.